It's happening. It's finally happened.
2 hours later.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Here we are.
Let me find our show notes and we'll get started, bud.
It says random banter. Scheduled.
Well.
This is it.
All right. Well, we've talked about this a bajillion times. What's going on? Why is it happening? We need to find a way to output quality material to the people that we care about most, but at the same time, not have to film every single day like we did over the shutdown. So, one long video, awesome clips, fame and stardom coming our way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Make sure your mic's not muted, just in case.
It's not. We're good. I think we're good. There's no light on.
Just like everyone else, I guess, before we start, a couple announcements. We have partnered with a couple local partners. One of them being CBD Lawrence. I met Dustin, the owner of CBD Lawrence, at a BNI meeting. I don't even really know what BNI stands for. Some kind of business group. I got invited to it. And he reached out to me through that, and then it came full circle not long ago when I reached out to him about setting up a deal. So CBD Lawrence down on Mass Street, they're awesome. Dustin's a great guy. He's going to come on, I don't know if he's actually going to come on this show or if we're going to do something with Zoom. I have no idea. But he gave us a discount code.
Is that the one next to Gary Gribbles?
Yes, it's it's actually really cool. It's a art gallery and CBD shop. So anyways, it's really cool. But so for anyone I guess listening to this and or we'll put out an email at the gym too. If you use the code all caps KVCF, you're gonna get 10% off all online sales. This is no compounding discounts, is active till further notice. Just gives you a little bit of help, takes out a little bit more than tax, makes it worthwhile. In addition, we also partnered with Body Specific. I had not had any interactions with them. You have, but I emailed Leah. She was super awesome, and we set up a deal with them too. We have cards somewhere. I don't think I have them with me, but we have handouts at the gym.
You did a second ago.
They're over here, I think. We have handouts at the gym. Take a handout in, you get $10 off a 60-minute massage. We're going to try to do some quarterly things with them also, where we do something special maybe once every couple months and things like that. And we're hoping to give out some things as gifts from the gym too, or I guess prizes. If we do like competition or something, then, you know, maybe a couple massages, the winning thing, or the chiropractor. They're also going to come on the show and or Zoom. So and then we're also going to have their main chiropractor come on too and talk about what she does also with sports specific stuff in general. And then finally, we don't have a discount code, but if you go to KAW Valley CrossFit and your kid doesn't go to Top Tumble, you're
missing out is what he's going to say. You're missing out.
You're one of the few.
Yeah. How many parents do we have that have kids in Top Tumble? There's Crystal, there's Richard. I
have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Brooke, you have to call into the show. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
We don't have that ability. We barely got this running, so we're gonna have to wait and see. But a lot. But anyways,
is there a discount? Is that what you're saying?
There is no discount.
Oh, there's no discount.
That
was the end of that.
It's just full price. Your kid needs to go to.
We're just trying to pay rent. That's what that is.
Your kid just Brooke pays half the rent, so I need you to make sure that your kid goes there.
It's good for your kid's athletic development if they can bounce around a room and do flips and stuff.
Yeah, it prepares you for CrossFit.
That's exactly right.
But, anyways, we're going to start with some gym-specific stuff. We're going to cover some things going on around the gym, things that we're looking forward to, and things like that. And then we're going to move into some general topics about health and fitness. And you guys will see them as clips. I don't know how long they'll be. Well, knowing us, they'll be too long. But you'll see them as clips depending on how long the topic's covered. But then we'll probably release maybe the whole form thing eventually towards the end once all the clips are out. But first off, let's talk programming. What's coming up in the programming? What's been happening at DecaComp? What's Michelle been typing up behind the scenes? I'm going to let you start there.
Cool. So programming, we are just past kind of like the learning phase of incorporating the breathing into the programming. So you're not going to see as much. It's just going to be kind of details. Later this week, I think Tuesday it is, you'll see like gear 4 in just the calories. So you'll notice it start to be played into certain movements or parts of the workout. You're still going to have like your gear 3 workout. I'm going to try to put in one of those in its entirety, but you're not going to see it as much. It's now just a tool that we have in our toolbox. You've probably noticed the muscle up stuff that's coming in on Fridays. That might move around just a little bit to throughout the week, but it looks like we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into the muscle up technique. That's gonna be super beneficial for all parties or all levels. Learning how to move your body in different ways, especially to get up and over onto something, is super beneficial. So those drills are going to stay for at least a couple weeks, and we'll get into some strict gymnastics as well, I believe in about 2 weeks, strict being like strict muscle ups kind of thing. The big focus right now is movement consistency. So one of the things we wanted to do with the breathing is kind of bring in a governor that wasn't your absolute fittest performance. So how do you do like a 70% effort? How do you do a 60% effort? We use the breathing to do that, and now we can use those different intensities to work on our movement efficiency. So if we can practice being efficient, we will eventually move a lot better when it comes to testing time. So that's something that we're focusing on now. You'll see that in like the AMRAPs, combining things that are like the monostructural, the biking and the calories and the rowing with something that's high level, so, or skilled, like the squat snatches, I believe it was last week, or like throwing in double unders or gymnastics movement with the high intensity calories. You can start to practice that efficiency under controlled settings. So that's kind of the big overarching focus, is like not letting the wheels come off, because when the wheels come off, it's not good for like long-term athletic development. It's just good for testing. So there's that, which is kind of nice.
One thing we've done too is we've started dosing in with the coaches more of this overarching theme stuff, so that in class it's not just in a video format that you're going to find out about it. It's going to be more in the daily conversation. And so, I mean, I don't know how often we'll record one of these, so we're not going to record one of these every week. So there's not going to be a way for us to constantly cover. If you're someone who cares about what goes on here each and every week in the programming at an overarching level, but you'll see that through the coaches in bits and pieces.
Yeah. The other nice thing is something that we've been able to play with now that we're adding that mobility into every single day in some form or fashion. We're starting to put in kind of some, I would say, gym-specific mobility stuff. So something that I noticed a couple weeks ago is most people's ankle mobility is actually pretty good, but a lot of our hips seem to be a little wonky. Maybe it's the amount of Zoom calls we're all stuck with sitting down at our desks all day long. But you've probably noticed that there's been a lot of hip mobility the past couple weeks. We're going to continue down that track, and then we'll probably dive into shoulders or wrists or something else for a little bit. But that's been a theme. That's been something that hopefully you guys are getting more out of, is hitting that hip stuff over and over and over again. We should see some benefit for almost every movement that we do.
Nice. Well, let's actually scoot ahead, because this leads us directly into some of... I digress. With the new website drop, which you haven't checked out our website, www.kawvalleycrossfit.com, but it took me forever. Please go look at it if you haven't. It was a huge pain. We worked with a company called 321 Go. They work with Wodify. They were awesome, but I just am not that intelligent. So... but in addition, with that, we dropped private coaching pricing. We haven't implemented this at a high level too much yet, but this is going to start being a little bit of an insight into what grabbing 30 minutes or an hour with the coach can do when it comes to some of the more complicated items. We don't really have the facility nor the staff for maybe a lot of personal like training, which I think is a different thing here. I think our goal with private coaching and with the staff that we have now is that it supplements what you do in class. Yep. I think it's important that that focus time, I think, is going to be huge.
Yeah, that's one of the things that if you learn very quickly with gymnastics or you take naturally to barbell movements, that's one thing. But if you struggle with kipping pull-ups or you feel like you're strong enough to do a muscle up, well, if we only get to it at most right now once a week, which is kind of an anomaly, but once a month or once every other week, it's really difficult to really drive those skills home. And so one of the things that you can start to do now is like, cool, I would like to get my muscle up, or I would like to get 3 muscle ups, or I want to be able to consistently do them during a Metcon. Well, that's going to take a little bit more focus than what the class is going to be able to offer for those, just by nature of the frequency that we hit them. So now you can work with me, you can work with Liza, you can work with Joe, you can work with Chad on anything that you want to work on. You just let us know, and you can come in and we can hit muscle ups 3 times in a row, very focused, and kind of dial in that movement and give you also some ideas for how to incorporate that into class. So maybe if there are pull-ups in the workout, okay, cool. How do I put my intent and my focus for muscle ups into my pull-ups so I can get something, or I can move that needle forward even though it's not the same movement? We can start to play that game. Or I know for a lot of us, mobility is a huge issue, whether it's getting into a front rack or getting into the bottom of the squat comfortably. As much as we're hitting that in class like we talked about, if we can hit that, 3 times in a row for an hour, it's going to put a lot of tools in your toolbox, one, to work at home on those things, but also just that frequency that can move that needle forward so you can actually make some big moves as far as your mobility goes as well. So a couple different options. Obviously, also we can throw a barbell in there and work on snatch, clean and jerk, the deadlift, any of the basic lifts, whatever you guys want to do. But this is a really good opportunity to kind of hone in on the skills that might be eluding you, like double unders, for example. So
we'll work on improving the logistics of setting those up. Those are going to be set up directly through the coach that you would like to work with. You can always email me and we'll figure that out that way. But if you don't care, then we'll figure out someone that has a schedule for you. But otherwise, if you want to specifically work with Joe or you want to specifically work with anyone else or whatever, that's fine. We'll try to make that work in their schedule because they are actually the ones producing the intellectual property for that. It's not we're not managing them on that. We're gonna let them and your guys' relationship drive that forward.
Oh, one big thing just to throw it in there, if you guys do have at-home equipment, like if you have a pull-up bar, you have a barbell, and you wanted some extra programming to use at home and you wanted some guidance, that is something that I can do through a separate app, but we can do that. It's like a $50 a month charge. But if you are looking for some extra work that maybe you don't need that coach to watch you doing everything where it's that one-on-one time, but you do want to knock out some mobility stuff or some extra pulling work, whatever that is for you, we can also do that now as well. So that's going to be through me, so let me know for that. But a couple different options for you guys to get some work in outside of class and kind of start pushing things forward.
All right, I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 clips. We're gonna start here with
the crystal dots.
Crystal dots. Make a cool transition. Woof! What a transition. All right, so these are all sent in by these members. Obviously, a lot of this happened during the shutdown. So I reached out to a few of them. We put it out on the Facebook group. We got some Facebook messages. We're going to do this regularly. We're going to do this often. And that's all, folks. And we're going to do this often because we want to, one, benefit these members that took the time to send in their clips and trust us with harassing them on the internet. But at the same time, well, I don't know. That's really what we want to do. We want to just benefit them. So we're going to look at Crystal here.
Roll tape.
I can control this a little bit. Maybe. I don't know what I just did. I pressed spacebar.
Sweet. All right. We'll roll this a couple times. So we just got a power clean here. If you just want to keep playing it, I'll kind of break it down. So, boom.
We can go slow. You want to go slow?
Oh, we can go slow? Yeah, we can go slow. So one thing that I really like in the setup, if you just pause it right before she lifts off, is you can look at her back. It is very engaged. She's super protecting her spine. She's got good abdominal pressure. She's locked in. One thing, and this becomes readily apparent as she pulls the bar, her hips are slightly high. I would bring them down like an inch or two, and that's going to make for a better lift off the ground, that first pull. It's also going to set her up a little bit better later on. So as we play this, you'll notice her hips kick up a little faster than her shoulders. And so here, if you pause it there, she's very far over that bar, and her back is almost horizontal, right? Up until this point, we want those hips to still be a little bit lower. And I think if she started a little bit lower, that would help with it, be a little bit smoother off the ground. Go ahead and play through that again, or just from there. Boom. And then hit it one more time. She's got the hips high. She pops up. The other thing, and this is just because her shoulders are so far away from the bar, she's not able to get it to impact the quads as hard as she could. It kind of just glides up. And then she has a very vertical last drive. She comes up. I would like to see a little bit more, almost a backwards motion. Not much more.
It gets a little better right there, right?
That's true. Yeah. The very tail finish for sure. And then if she pulls under,
nice high elbows.
She starts to come straight down, and you'll notice her hips are like right on top of her heels, and her knees in this angle, they look almost too far forward. I'd like to see, especially if she could get her shoulders back behind on that triple extension, she'd be able to whip underneath and get more almost into a quarter squat, which is going to be a lot more stable for her to come out of. So overall, super good lift. She protects what she needs to protect during the whole thing, which is kind of nice. But I think, honestly, all of those things would be fixed if she just started with her hips a little bit lower.
Crystal, you're amazing.
Champion.
Let's see. Oh, while we're on it.
Oh, hey, look at that. Is that Crystal Dodds again?
Let's say Crystal Dodds again.
Back to back. We also get some gymnastics in this one, too.
Oh, yeah. It's a little bit of a long one. We're going for some... Is this the one?
This is the DT one. So she's deadlifting and cleaning, and then
let's watch it through once, and then we'll go through it slow.
That sounds good. Boom. So we got some deadlifts here. One thing you can kind of see is that it's kind of scrambly. So again, you can see her back, just like the other one, is very protected, which is awesome. But there's a lot of forward and backwards motion on the bar. And again, those hips kick up a little bit faster than I'd like. So
is arms crossed a standard male position that we just can't help?
Oh, it's true. It's just a side effect of mansplanation, and I'm gonna guess that there was maybe a little bit after this interval. I could be wrong.
They're cheering.
Yeah,
they're cheering.
They're totally.
All right, moving on.
So now we got into these power cleans, and this is where, because she's doing the hang cleans, I like her hip angle, and she's smooth. It's the right weight for her. One thing, can you go back?
Oh yeah, you want to go back?
Sorry, yeah, let's just hit it. When she goes into position 2, she looks up almost, and she like rears her neck, her cervical spine way back, and that kind of also gives that like
right here
reckless motion to it. It doesn't look as smooth as I'd like it to be, and I think it is that like looking up for a lot of it. As she goes to her catch, good triple extension. Elbows come through really well on that one. It's not as consistent on the next few, but she does have fast elbows on that very first one. Now, you can see as she brings the bar down, it almost looks like a kettlebell swing.
Right there, it yanks.
Right there, yeah. And she goes, so you can see again, her shoulders are way over that bar. And I would like it to be just a little bit more on top. That's going to make that cycle speed a little bit faster and not as like taxing on the core.
What tangibly can she do to make that happen? Does she need to just get the hips a little lower? Does she need to bend the knees a little bit?
So one of the things I would do, so she's catching in position 2, that's like the top of the knee position, is I would practice bringing it down at a lighter weight, bring it to position 1 and get used to cycling out of position 1, which is essentially like for just below the hip pocket, and get used to that because that's going to force you into an upright position, and then slowly bring it down. One of the nice things is if you can have a couple different gears in your system for cycling. So if I have a certain weight, I'm going to pop it off my hips. If it's a slightly heavier weight, maybe I pop it off the mid thigh. If it's a real heavy weight, I might go all the way down to position 2 and then pass back through position 1. And if you can do that on command, you'll have a little bit more control. But I think for her, if she started at position 1, which is going to give her that upright torso, and then slowly brought it down, she'd find some benefit there.
Okay, let's jump over to some toes to bar.
Toes to bar. Also, quick shout out. Pause that stuff. Dalton got some toes to bar, Kissinger, so just shout out to that. That's super awesome. Toes to bar are really, really challenging, and it's cool to see her.
We've had a lot of big moments. I don't mean to leave anybody out, but I'm trying to think. Sarah got bar muscle up.
Yeah, she did.
God, we're gonna leave somebody out. I'm trying to think what else.
One of the things, and just a shout out to Sarah Hinton, is her strict strength is awesome, and she does take that really seriously, and so that makes it really, really easy, or not easy, but it makes it a lot easier to be prepared to do bar muscle ups. Then it's just putting the pieces together. If your technique is on point, but you can't yet do a strict pull up, or you struggle with the strict strength there, it's always going to be a really frustrating experience. So Hinton works really, really hard on the strict gymnastics, and that definitely is starting to play off for sure. Yeah,
we've had some awesome gymnastics days the last couple weeks also, where it's like we just had that bar muscle up variation day where it was just whatever works for you, practice it, and those are awesome. I think those are very helpful. Let's see. And I believe this was over 3 or 4 months ago.
Yep.
So, mind you, a lot of these things have probably changed in these people's lives since then. But
also, quick shout out, we did toes to bar, and her toes to bar were awesome last week. So we'll hit this, but Crystal, please don't think that I still think this about your toes to bar. They were really good on Monday last week, or Tuesday. All right, cool. So big thing with toes to bar is, and you can see this in the knee raise, and then you can see where it's missing in the toes to bar. And so she's got an awesome drill where she's switching off between a toes to bar and a knee raise, a toes to bar and a knee raise, which works really well. And so can you actually go back a split second and pause?
At the top
with the knee raise? Yeah. Cool. So here, if we can use the wood planks as the reference point, her hips and her shoulders are behind the planks, right? They're behind the pull-up bar. And that's allowing her space, and it's also closing that gap for her knees to get really, really, really high. When she goes to the toes to bar, which we'll go to in a second, you'll notice that her hips are more on the plane of the plank, or almost out in front, and that's going to affect her kip rhythm that this drill kind of helps close off, or she can get around. But she comes up, and boom. And the big thing is here. You can, can you go back 2 frames? So keep going, sorry. There we go. So as she's kicking back, her hips are traveling in the right direction. But as she goes closer to the bar, her hips start to swing forward. So they're going back. And then right at the end, now they come forward.
Oh, yeah.
And that means that as she's coming down forward too fast. And that's going to throw off her next rep. Now, she's just got a knee raise on the next rep, so she can compensate for that. But she's got to put a lot of effort into it, and you can see that in how far back her shoulders go. But she almost swings forward with her hips on the toes to bar. If she was able to keep that same aggression that she had in the knee raise and keep her hips a little bit farther back for a little bit longer, she'd be able to rock out the toes to bar more efficiently. So other note on the back side of the kip, if you can just get her in her arch real quick. I think on her first one, it was probably the first or second one. Any of those will work. Boom. Okay, cool. Right there. So if you can follow the line from her hand to her shoulder to her hip, it's a pretty clean arch. But then once you go from her hip to her knee, the curvature gets a little bit more extreme. And now you have the knee angle, which is now it's not a curve at all. It's just a bend in the knee, right? And so she's putting a lot of effort into it. You can see from her lovely face that she is trying really, really hard, but that energy isn't necessarily going in the direction that she's going to want it to go. She's going to have to straighten her knee and kick it, which is going to throw off her rhythm. So one thing that I would like to see out of this is, instead of kicking back towards the back wall, if she were to kick down towards that ab mat or just behind, make a nice clean arch from hand to shoulder to hip to knee to the heel or the toe, she's going to have a lot better time staying efficient for that second, third, fourth rep.
Beautiful. Let her rock them out for a second.
And that definitely is playing into those hips coming forward as far as the backswing affecting it. And you can even see the difference. It's almost in the like a mind game. For when she's doing the knee raise, the kip is a lot better on the backside. When she goes to gear up for the toes to bar, she's trying to put more effort into it, and it's kind of getting in the way. So, but
hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet. Moving on.
Let's jump. Let's see who's next. Let's keep with the gymnastics theme while we're at it here.
I like it.
Let me make sure I get the bar on screen here. All right, only 8 seconds. Let's roll through it, and then we'll break her down in a second. Oh, much better, cameraman.
Did you film that?
No.
Oh. It was probably, I guess it was Daryl. Daryl. All right, so one, Tara just got her first kipping pull-ups. She's been working really, really hard towards a strict. I'd say she's probably 3 weeks away from getting her first strict, which is going to be awesome. So one, you can see that the strength that she has is really helping her out and finish this rep. Now the efficiency or the fluidity of the kip is where we can see some improvement. But can you go and pause at the top of the rep? Go back like a frame. So you can see from this that she is owning this top position. She's worked really hard on holding at the top of the bar, and she is completely comfortable here, which is a game changer for trying to get either a strict or a kipping pull-up, both. But toes are pointed, knees are together, she's squeezing her legs, she's keeping tension, and you can see in just her shoulders, she's owning it, right? As she comes through, she pushes away, which is awesome here. She arcs in, feet stay together for a really long time, which is awesome. And then, boom, pause there. Now, it's hard to tell from this angle, but you can kind of see from what her feet are doing. Her feet don't come that far apart, so not a big deal. But she's at a really big arch, especially from the hips down through the toes. So one, that might end up in some lower back discomfort. That's just a really big extension to be for the spine. But two, it's going to throw off her rhythm on the next rep. And so this big arch thing, which you saw in the last video as well, is going to affect the rhythm. So she comes up. Now she's going to have to fight for the top of the rep. I believe it's on this one. She comes up. I could be totally wrong.
Yep. So right here, it comes up a little shallow, and then it kind of ruins the momentum again by making the extra pull here.
Yeah, and you can see she's like, now she's reaching. So in the last one, her chin was very much a part of the bar, or above the bar, and now it's like just barely getting it. So play again. Play through.
So the feet come a lot farther apart here.
Yeah, now you can start to see, and the arch is even bigger.
Oh, and I probably should have paid more attention. We're not really seeing the feet on.
For any of it?
No, we are a little bit. I'm going to raise her on up a little bit. Just believe us that her feet were slightly apart. And this one, we've gotten a little lower once again, but we're getting fatigued too.
True story. This is the one. Okay, go back to the arch for this one, or actually to the end of the last rep if you can. So one big thing with kipping is rhythm and consistency, okay? So if we're not rhythmic with our motion, eventually it's going to get thrown off. Toes to bar is probably where you're going to see that or feel that the most. Something just feels goofy about it. So she comes up, she doesn't push away as hard, and so she almost comes straight down, and then she forces herself into this big arch motion.
Oh, back earlier.
Yeah.
We're going backwards right now.
We're going backwards. So
here she's going to push away, but it's almost a drop down here. You can see it. Whoop.
Yep. So she drops straight down. That's a good clip there. And then she reaches her feet back to create this artificial arch. And now she comes up, and she's got to use that strict strength, which is great. It can kind of pull her. She's going to just finish this. toughs it out there. So pause it there. And now, so that's the part where if you have the strict strength, you're just going to be well far above anybody else that doesn't have that to be able to compensate for any loss of technique. It doesn't necessarily play out the other way. If you don't have the strict strength there, the technique is only going to get you so far.
What is your opinion though on this in class? I mean, I know this is a split second that we're really breaking down. This whole clip's only 8 seconds, but is it worth the extra little pull to get your chin above that bar in the grand scheme of class, or is it worth just keeping that momentum going and not making that point there? That's also a lot of tension.
Right. It depends. So it's also having like a backup plan. So one thing that, and this is the last suggestion I would make on hers, is once you use that strict strength, you've got to fix the mistake that led to it. And so she needs to, well, she does her last rep, but if she were to sit there and finish the rep and then really push away from the bar at the top, it would set her up for what would have been the next rep a little bit better. So in class, it kind of just depends. So like, let's say it's your first or second rep of a set and you're squeaking through, that's totally fine. But eventually that strength is going to give out towards the end of the workout. So having something like a 2-1-2 drill where you're doing 2 kips, 1 pull up, 2 kips, 1 pull up, is going to allow you to still find consistency and work on that kip consistency throughout the workout versus just popping up and doing a single and doing a single and doing a single. And something we've been talking about in class is like, if you're starting out, let's say there's 30 pull-ups and you're on rep 27 of 30 and you need to do a single, not a big deal, right? Finish the workout. But if you're on rep 5 of 30 and you're doing singles, we got to have something else. Maybe you can do the 30 singles, but like that's not going to play into your future development as an athlete. Being able to dial back to like a 2-1-2 drill and doing like 5 or 6 of those, you're going to get better pull-ups in, and then you're also going to probably fix the problem that's causing you to need to do singles anyway, because a lot of that is not being able to hold onto the bar for so long. And if you're doing singles, you're not training holding onto the bar, you're training what you already know you can do. That's been
a big thing that we've been talking about in any discovery one-on-one sessions when you're a new member, is that it's always more important to work within yourself than it is to, I'm not talking about Tara at all right now, than it is to just try to complete the movement, because like you said, 2-on-2 drill is going to get you way more volume and actual movement practice in, and a better workout in the end of it anyways.
And we'll segue on that here in a little bit.
Let me see if I can make this a little bigger.
Does Liza have a bandana on?
She looks like she's
just wish she could go rob a bank with a squirt gun.
This is a swiper no swipey situation.
Or she's just stunned that John is now using the force to levitate a bar. But
that is true. Oh, that's because this is the very end of the clip. All right.
Can you skip to the mirror scene on this one?
Yeah.
Also, just a quick note, if you guys do send in videos, a 45-degree angle works really well, so you can see that in the mirror, which is really awesome. But if we can see the side of really any movement, that's going to tell us a lot more. Directly from the side is fine for gymnastics, but for the barbell, you'll see this in some other ones, I think, that we have, the plate kind of gets in the way. So this one's a perfect angle for this.
It makes me feel kind of creepy, though. Like we're spying on him through the
It does kind of, yeah.
Okay, so we skipped forward, but he is doing hang power cleans. Also, he's doing hang power cleans at like 6'5".
This is true.
If you don't know John, this is like let's just, for the sake of legend, this guy's like 7 feet.
This is also like 10% of his power clean max, so he's just manhandling it right now.
Okay, let me stop talking around.
All right, so while he's finding this, a big thing, there's 2 big things that happen here, and one awesome thing. So something that John is, because he's just a giant, it's really hard for him to build strength. It just takes a lot of time, and so. One, it's not 10% of his power clean max. It's pretty heavy, and he's made an enormous improvement over the last year in terms of consistency and being able to cycle through reps like this. So super impressive. Let's get down to what could make this better. Cycling a barbell, especially a clean, it is really easy to come straight off the knees. We kind of saw that in Crystal's a little bit earlier, but you can see once we play this, he's going to come almost straight up from that position. Right? And now it's pretty far away from him. As he comes up, that bar is real far away. And then now to come get it, his knees have to go forward. Pause there. His knees have now come forward and his hips are forward. We talked about Crystal doing this earlier. Can we do a side by side?
Yeah, we can't quite see it either, but this also has led to the heels being slightly up.
Yeah.
No, we can't because I accidentally closed it.
Okay, that's fine.
Learned.
That's
I won't
fine.
do that next time.
That's fine. So one thing is, especially if you're power cleaning, cycling at a heavy weight, you really want to be able to catch it in a position that you can squat in, just a quarter squat. So the hips being slightly behind the ankle and the knees being a little bit farther back. That's going to help John out a lot. So this is called like a muted hip in CrossFit terminology, but that hip needs to have a bit more of an angle.
One thing we've been talking about also in discovery sessions is it kind of comes back to catching it in like that universal ready sport position that you learn like in every sport, like your shoulders slightly forward, hips slightly back, knees bent, and it comes back to that same dynamicness.
Yeah. So to fix this, it's really hard to fix this with a clean because of where it's supposed to come off the thighs is kind of arbitrary. But in a snatch, you have a really good feedback of coming out of the hip pocket. So one thing, especially for heavy barbell cycling, is you need to sweep back into position 1. If only just a little bit. You really don't want to come straight out of position 2, straight out of the top of the knee. You want to have that little bit of patience where you're sliding up the thigh. So if you were to try to pick up his shorts and then pop it up, that bar is going to be a little bit closer to him. He's not going to have to chase after it by bringing his knees forward. So it's something that's easier to feel in the snatch. So it would be something for John to work on during snatches to get used to that feeling of the sweep back, and then you can start to apply it to the clean.
How do you feel about this catch on the bottom here?
So this is a little bit better than.
He stops. That's why it's a little weird. Oh, interesting.
He's gearing back up. Oh, he's gearing back up. That's fine. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So definitely heavy.
Well, this is more true. A lot of times in class, you'll see people cycling barbells with just one quick hit.
Yep.
Nice, and wherever.
I will say, if you rewind before he deadlifts it up, this is kind of what I was talking about with Crystal's video.
Go a little farther back?
Yeah, can you just have him bring it down, and we'll just pretend that he's going to go out of that spot?
Where are you talking about for this?
I don't know.
Let me see.
It's after a power clean, he brings it down. There. Go back. Like 2 clicks.
Okay.
Forward 1 click. We're learning. Okay, so here is kind of what I was talking about with Crystal. So Crystal had her shoulders way over the bar. Here, if John were to pop out of this position, he's ready. The bar is close to him. All he's got to do is tighten up his lats a little bit, and then he can slide up a couple inches, and he's ready to just cycle this weight. And so that's kind of the difference earlier with Crystal's is like she was way far over the bar, and that made it a little bit more challenging for her to keep control. So.
And then I think nice little grimace. Oh, we're reloading one more. Same idea, same problem, right? Arms are coming out away from the body.
And that's causing him to crunch his toe into the toes, and he's going way forward on that.
Which doesn't help when you're 7'5".
It's true.
8 foot, whatever.
It's so true.
But I understand. I mean, that's awesome. This is a good view. Yeah. Also, props to Liza for properly sanitizing the metals.
And then one last thing, we'll get into this a little bit more with the programming stuff, is it's good to let the wheels come off sometimes, right? So on that one, John's wheels came off just a little bit to make the weight happen. But if we're always doing that, we're always compensating, and we always want to reserve that for the few and far between reps or the few and far between tests that we need to do. On a day in and day out basis, it's almost always better to just hit good, clean reps. Everything that we do in CrossFit is very refined in terms of our movement patterns. And if we count ourselves as a win that you did, your 70% by the skin of your teeth on a day-in-day basis, that's what's going to happen in your Metcon. Like that's what's going to happen when the wheels come off. You're always going to fall back to your lowest level of training, right? And so if your lowest level of training is more or less perfect every single time, even if you're lifting 25 pounds, 50 pounds less than what you would have been lifting, when you go up that 25% or whatever it is, or you're exhausted from a Metcon, if your lowest level of training is super clean and super efficient, you're going to have a lot better time on that 5th round of a workout or 20 minutes into an open WOD.
Mostly we kept this one in just for the ending. This is John Riggs' caretaker, also wife. But anyways, this is the one where the plate we were talking about earlier, where the plates can end up covering some of that action up top that we would be looking at usually. But we're still gonna roll through this. We'll give Marley some pointers here. How you feeling about this, bud?
First thing, so sit back a little bit. So when you're starting in your clean or your snatch, your weight should be maybe slightly towards the ball of the foot, but just forward of mid center of the foot itself. And here, it's just, you can see the bar is separate from her, and she's really far forward. And so like it's like she's dead in the ball of her foot. So I would pull the bar back. I would spread the knees just a little bit, and that should give her a little bit more centered balance before she pulls. But I will say, now we can see a good hip angle. So now you can see her shoulders, her hips, and her knees. Her hips are right in between her shoulders and knees. Oh, that's fun. Her ponytail is doing its thing.
Magical ponytail.
Magical ponytail. But this is, as far as the hip angle, is a really good hip angle to start. Boom, pause. So now we can start to see where if she were to sit back just a little bit in the start, she wouldn't be as far forward here. So you can see that bar should be swept back. The knee should be back a couple inches at this point, and it's already forward. So that's going to cause problems here in a second.
Which is interesting that it's actually that setup which causes the head whipping back.
Absolutely.
It's tied in together.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to lose.
Boom,
well,
here.
We can already tell.
Yeah, you can tell. So she never makes contact with the thighs, right? So whether we're brushing it off or we're like smacking it, you can see this earlier in Mr. Riggs's video. It just kind of comes straight up, right? So she's losing a lot of power from the hips here. There's not much connection.
This is all being dominated by that shrug high pull.
Boom, pause. Here is a really good catch, though. Her elbows, you can catch a little bit of a glimpse. So she had real fast elbows. This is that quarter squat position we were talking
Legend.
about. So this is excellent as far as a catch. As far as a catch goes, props to that.
I'm so dehydrated. I cannot stop sucking on this water. But I've already realized that I'm almost done. So I'm like, oh god, I need to really keep this through. I haven't finished it out. Oh, front squat.
Oh, it was a squat clean.
No, it's front squats now.
And a front squat. Oh, I remember this complex. Okay. Cool. Reverse to the dip and drive for the split jerk. Now, also something to keep in mind, we don't split jerk much at KAW Valley. It's very few and far between. It's a fun lift, but
all right.
We just don't hit it that much. So
probably a little deep on this dip here.
Yeah, a little deep. So here, the dip, I like to think of it as just position one. It's technically speaking slightly different than position one, but whatever. For all intents and purposes, it should just be position one, which is just a slight hip, slight knee bend. Here, she's almost in that quarter squat position again. And so it's gonna make the weight feel heavier. We want to think of ourselves as a really tight spring, not like we're gonna catapult the bar up off the shoulders. The other thing is you can see the bar over the foot. The bar is over the toe, right? If she were to sit down straight a little bit more, it'd be over the middle of the foot, and that's gonna be a little bit more balanced because here she's gonna throw it slightly forward as it comes up. Boom, and she catches. And I mean slightly forward as in it's not as far back as it should go. So yes, the bar does travel about an inch or so, but I would like to see those hands just a little bit farther back with a little bit like a slightly forward torso. The big thing here though is her back leg, and so when you catch in the split jerk, you want to think about this more like a track start off the blocks. You want to be up on the toe so the heel is off the ground, and then you want a slight turn out of the heel. And so just like when we lunge with our back leg towards the midline. We actually internally rotate that back leg to create tension. Here she's externally rotated. Her toe is pointing off to the right. And so she's losing a little bit of stability, and because it's so narrow, she hasn't been able to get underneath the bar as much. And so I would get a little bit more aggressive, like Alex said about the athletic stance. You want to be like at the ready for this.
You saw that a little bit here too. I feel like this is a little bit more of a loping jump. This didn't have like that jump down idea that we have where these feet came aggressively into the ground. This is more,
yeah.
She powered it up, but then didn't drive herself underneath it.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the whole point of a split jerk is to get underneath the bar and land in a very stable position. And a lot of people get into this thing where they just throw the bar almost like a push press and then just split the feet. But they might as well just push press it essentially. So
throw it down on the ground, girl.
Get some. Here's the best part of this whole video, though.
Oh, here we go. We'll just play it.
Oh, snaky leg.
Shake it. I think the best part is this right here. Oh man, we can't see it because it's blurry. I don't know if this is just pure bliss or just rethinking every decision ever made. I'm gonna go with pure bliss because I want to see the positive.
I thought it was adorable. I think
this is they're a fantastic couple.
It's true. It's true.
All right, let's move on. I think that we're
getting it.
Well, we're gonna. You know what? Let's do John again.
Yeah, John. It was a good squat. You should go lower, but it was a good squat. That's all I got. All right, old clean video of Flager making sure that he can still clean 225. I believe I remember this day.
Hardo.
Awesome. All right, first thing. Actually, can you go back to the standing at the end? This is kind of important. Flager has really short femurs. Okay, this is gonna play into this video. I love you. You're gorgeous.
This is for scientific purposes.
Yeah, you have really short femurs, so that's gonna play into this. He also has a very glorious torso. Props to you, sir, but it is very long. And so the combo of those makes this setup position a little less than ideal.
So if you happen to have the short femurs, I was gonna make a joke, but if you happen to have short femurs and a long, glorious torso, what can you do to help your setup position?
Swimming. You would be a good swimming.
Give up.
Okay, sorry. Actually, so it actually does set him up to lift pretty heavy weights, which is kind of nice. But you're gonna need slightly lower hips. But his are just too low. And so he is sitting almost at parallel, which is a very squatty position. And you can see it when he pulls off the bar. His hips are going to come up pretty quick to compensate.
Could these feet come in a little bit?
Yeah, they
just
could.
Personal preference.
It's personal preference. It doesn't really. I mean, yeah. We're splitting hairs on style there. But can you actually just play it?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, play full speed.
It's a short one.
And then run it back. Boom. Okay, cool. Now we can go into slow-mo. That face is just great.
I'm worried he's going to lay an egg there.
All right, so you can see his hips went up a little fast, right? And that's just because they're trying to get back to that ideal start position in the first place. And that leads him to a pretty slow second pull that he makes up for with a good third pull, but it's going to get in the way of his front rack position. Boom. I feel like he's gonna poop his pants.
One good note here, though. Look how grounded these feet are.
True story. Yeah, his footwork is excellent.
I can't tell if it's the angle, maybe a little bit of hip shift, but I can't. But
he does have a little bit. It's not like I wouldn't call it like a fault by any means. He catches in a super stable position, which is going to make up for that serratus anterior on the left side. Just struggle bussing right now.
Squeeze the butt, man.
Sorry, Flager. I love you.
Butt.
All right, so big things here. So because of the start position, we're just going to keep going back to look at that happy face, that handsome dad.
Look at Dad Bod smiling.
All right, bringing it back. Almost every fault comes from the start position that you guys have seen, right? So the start has so much more to do with the rest of the lift than we usually think of. And so because his hips are rising to get to that ideal position, it's going to get in the way of a lot of things. Now, he makes up for it for a fast under pull, but as he comes up, so there's a good start position, and then he keeps coming up.
So you're looking almost for this, but just
but then on the ground. Yeah, right. Boom. He throws the bar out a little bit, so he gets pretty far over the bar, which is fine. But it's a slow second pull. The second pull is from the knee to the hip. So now he's having to jump forward. So he lands grounded, but you see he jumps forward a couple inches because he kicked the bar out.
So he had to meet it.
He had to go meet the bar, which then also causes the bar to want to still come forward, so it slides forward on that front rack. So it all goes back to the start position. One thing for him that he can do is, and this is just a tool in the toolbox, is just work on different hip start positions. Yeah, sure, there's an ideal for weightlifting. Don't go back just yet. Actually, can you find where he catches the bar at the very end? Because I do have a comment on that. Or sorry, at the top of the lift. Keep going. Yeah. Yeah, rewind like a couple seconds. So for Eric, I would just play with different hip heights and getting used to it. For a max lift, yeah, we want to have our set position. But for CrossFit, there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to do under fatigue, when our muscles are tired, when we're coming off of a rower or a run. And it's not going to be perfect every time. We need to be able to stabilize and create tension in a variety of different ways, so we can use our awesome human bodies in ways that make sense to solve the problem that we're giving it in that Metcon in that moment. And so, yeah, we want to be consistent, but we want to be able to make good lifts with our hips maybe 2 inches higher, 2 inches lower, and not have it cause these big faults. Okay, so one big thing that he does here, this is something that we've talked about with barbell cycling, is once he catches it, he pops it off of his shoulders, but he catches it with locked out knees after he does it.
Right here.
So right there, boom, he hits with locked out knees. Now, Flager's basically Chuck Norris, and he's invincible, so it's not a big deal. But something I always want to make sure that you guys know is important is like use your knees as springs, use them as shock absorbers. I know of lifters like Jared Fleming that have like really messed their knees up by accidentally catching with locked out knees, because you're sitting there, I mean, you're putting over your body weight just straight into that joint. Something's going to give eventually. So treat your knees like shock absorbers. I like to think about like barbell gymnastics. We want to be fluid with the barbell, and we want to move with the barbell, not against it. So super good lift. I will say he has worked on this again, just like Crystal with the toes to bar. He's worked on this quite a bit, and it is getting
this must have been 6 months ago or so. This is
pre-COVID.
This is pre. So how was Dabad's roundhouse kick?
It's top secret.
Kick your head off. All right,
Mr. Chris Dotts, let's go.
Okay, we'll play it through 15 seconds. We'll watch it once or twice, and then we'll see what happens. Let me adjust him a little bit here. It's hard. He's so dang tall.
Great catch. All right, first thing, and I just, of all the lifters so far, you guys have all done an excellent job of this. You stabilize your spines before you make the lift, and you have a really good, clean start. So you can see he's like got a rounded back right beforehand, and then he pulls tension, and he has a really good understanding of how to protect that spine, which is super important. So props Chris Dodds for that. This is going to have some similar things to Marley's lift earlier. So he starts a little bit too forward, and that's going to come into play as he pulls the bar up. So
slow motion.
I'm in the Navy.
Okay, here we go.
All right, so you can see that he's too far forward. Go back like a frame if you can. Yeah, he's just a little bit too far forward. We want to be able to sweep the bar back towards the heel, or the weight towards the heel as we get to the knee, and his knees are not yet out of the way. And so here I would like to have those knees push back just a little bit sooner. We're splitting hairs. This is a pretty good lift. So he comes through. Now his knees sway back, but you'll notice that the bar doesn't sweep back until there. So the bar should be consistently sweeping back through the whole motion. He doesn't start sweeping it until he gets to the knee.
That's a solid.
That's a solid second pull, though.
What a hoss.
Yeah. I like it. He's going. He's diving under. And this is probably the best part of this lift. He catches just excellently. Yeah. Now here, pause. The thing I like about this is the bar is centered over the midfoot, but you can see that like it traveled from the second pull. It had to travel a little bit further back to get to a good position. If you would have started with that weight in his foot a little bit just behind the ball of the foot instead of in the ball of the foot or towards the toes, the bar wouldn't have had to have gone that far back, or he wouldn't have had to bring it that far back to catch it in this good position. And so he did a really, really good job of, I wouldn't say saving the lift, but finishing the lift despite the start position being like less than ideal.
Does Scott have those same lifters? I feel like that.
Are those Scott's? They might be. Did he buy them from him?
Actually, we don't say that name here anymore.
He is dead to us.
Scott moved to Colorado.
Bigger and better things, apparently. Getting married, buying a house.
What a jerk.
Boom.
Oh, look at him. Looking off.
Looking that for that.
You saw that?
Now, I will say it's interesting. The arms are not crossed in the right side. So I think it is a mansplanation thing. It's only when there's a female lifting. We have to have our arms crossed.
I bet. That's hands on hips, though. A little more open position, though, for understanding. Oh. Look, he's like, all right, that's pretty impressive.
Now, okay, this is just another safety note. It is a lightweight. I believe it's 85 pounds.
This, right.
But it's always important to remember, we usually get hurt in moments like this, where now the back has rounded, and then he sets the bar out away from him. That bar is going to get a lot heavier the further out it goes, and that's going to expose those discs. And so it's easy when we have a light weight to just not worry about it. But since we do so many reps like this, it's important to make it a habit to put the bar down the way that you got it back up, right? Keep your back tight and control it. And that's going to pay off because it's those weird moments where it's like, oh, it's only the barbell. It's only 75 pounds, whatever. But that's that's very far away, and you can see the back is rounded. And it's just puts you guys at a little bit more risk. So I would be a little bit more careful about how we're working with the barbell. Boom. Two more.
Let's do
squatting.
Let's do Chris Dodd's back to back. This should be a pretty quick one. Mostly this one's here for some cute factor too, not just because Chris is in it.
But there's a dog. I'm going to talk through this one just because I already saw it. One thing you'll notice is that he's kind of robotic in his hips coming back. So boom, his hips go back. And it's almost like a two-part lift. Now, our hips should go back and bend with the knees. But on that very first one, he just sets the hips back very robotically. And then, yeah. And zoom in. And then we're back.
Whose house is this? I like this 4x4 post one.
I think that's the Rigs. Yeah, it's the Rigs, I think.
The Rigs, you guys are so cool.
They are pretty cool. So, and I think that's something that he's like purposefully working on. But if it was just like a squat for, points, we want to make it a really fluid movement. Yeah, the hips go back, but we don't want to make it like a two-part thing. So, solid lift. He gets good depth. He does keep really good tension and control over the hips and the knees.
You want to see it again?
But, yeah, sure. Boom. But
Dodds is also like a day one convert. He came in day one, no CrossFit experience, almost exactly 2-something years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Took the first workout was
7 minutes of
ascending ladder,
burpees and air squats.
Yeah, 1 burpee, 1 air squat, 2 burpees, 2 air squats, and he remembers his score. We were talking about this not that long ago. He remembers. We need to have him redo it.
We should. That'd be funny.
But he has absolutely been crushing it.
That's such a hard workout.
He lost a bunch of weight. Got Crystal in here. It's been awesome. Okay.
Last one. All right, we back to Tara. We also have this is another clean and jerk video. So some similar things going on. We're not gonna watch it. It's done. Sorry,
Who
Tara.
has any idea where it went? Oh, I minimized it. It's back.
Okay, we're back. All right, we're back.
We try to find a way that it fits on the screen. Okay.
All right, same forward position. We gotta sit back.
Let me play through it real quick.
Right,
and we'll let a couple lifts happen.
That is a heavy lift for her. Crushed it. Such a good
fighting those knees out.
complex. Such a good complex.
This is perfect. We get to talk about 3 different things here.
Yep. All right, Alec.
Forget that bar.
Level 1 extraordinaire. What you seeing?
Okay. Tara always has kind of a wide setup. I don't know if this is something that matters.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really... I think the problem is it pushes in your elbows. Makes your hands be a little wider. But she's also not very tall, so I don't know how much that...
So,
really
one,
matters.
I do like the pushing into the elbows because you can create more tension that way. But...
Well, no, I get what you're saying, but I think that when you're normal width, that makes sense. But I think it causes a little bit of...
Yeah.
It pushes your elbows out this way, as in angular.
Yeah, and that's something she's been working on. She does tend to start wide and then catch wide. So something for her, if she literally kept her toes where they are and brought her heels in a little bit, that way her knees could turn out.
That's what I'm saying.
And, then she could
and
push
she's
them
also
out.
pretty equal-footed here, and her hips are a little high.
It was a good eye.
Okay. I noticed this in the video too. This is a long time to try to like, either she's not keeping, we can't really see it in the video because it's slow-mo. Either she's not keeping tension here, but this is a long time to try to hold tension into a bar. So she's probably not doing it, which means it's going to happen at the very end.
True story.
Because she takes a breath. You see a breath. Oh, she's like, oh no, this is going to be heavy. What mental preparation is huge too. The bar seems a little bit far away from the shins too.
There you go. Good eye. Yeah. It starts a little bit farther away, and you can see that weight's forward, a little bit too forward. So now it's got to sweep way back. She does a good job of bringing it back.
Yeah. Gets her knees out of the way.
Great position too. She comes off of the mid thigh. I would like it to come back just a little bit more.
Well, I think the hips can come forward a little faster for a little, but and then we get the same thing. But this is where the problem comes with the super wide setup. Is this is way outside her normal squat stance, which is, it's hard to squat that wide. She's gonna crush it though, but prove me absolutely wrong. I think this is like 325 on this bar too. Just don't look.
Basically. All right, so just to finish out the clean conversation, you want to go back to the triple extension or lack thereof? So the bar comes out a little bit. She's got to sweep it back. So she doesn't get all the way to her hip extension, right? She doesn't get straight.
Right there, we're rebending.
Yeah. So one thing, and this probably actually has a lot to do with the setup time. She takes a long time to set up, and I think she was holding tension the whole time, which is just exhausting, right? And then that also gives her time to think too much. So for something for her is I would decide that she's going to lift the bar before she gets to her setup. You make the decision, then you grab onto the bar, and then you go. So one, I would have her watch videos of Ilya Alen, one of the greatest clean and jerkers of all time, and that dude will walk up on stage, and the second he bends over to grab that bar, it is on his shoulders. No setup time whatsoever. He just grips it, and crushes records, fueled heavily by Russian steroids. So that's fine.
Thanks, Putin.
But
are we allowed to say his name on YouTube?
I don't know. We'll probably
Thanks,
get
Russian leader.
demonetized. Anyhow, so I would like her to just kind of make that decision before she goes down, and then also that's going to give her a little bit more energy to finish that lift instead of just trying to get it over with. So then the feet do come wide, and so you can see that like that's the dead end of her squat because her feet are so wide, and you can see that right knee kind of wants to come in. If she was just a little bit more narrow, she would have a little bit easier time getting lower. Now you're going to see almost the exact same faults in this split jerk.
I think there's a front squat.
So yeah, she's front squats it.
So this is actually a great example. This is exactly what her squat position is here.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is solid.
Fighting those elbows up.
She's fighting to keep those knees out. They come in a little bit, but she's working on it. Now the dip and drive is going to be a little bit low, and then that back foot's going to catch.
And the knees collapse.
And the knees tend to
right.
come
I can't tell the left one's collapse.
And this goes into that same thing of compensating. And so if we're constantly having that happen, it needs to be like a hyper focused thing, just like with John and the hips coming forward. So
this is a common fault I feel like we see in class a lot also too is this idea of I think her foot caught a little earlier than she thought, but this idea of not pushing yourself under. It's that same idea. She had more aggression than I was at Marley's video.
Yep.
But that jumping down idea that it's gonna be hard to catch this with those shoulders back like that, and now it's just to rotate that whole body through. Yeah,
and it's the difference between pushing the bar up and pushing yourself underneath the bar. Same thing like the snatch. We're not lifting the bar up. We're putting ourselves underneath the bar. So that gets really hard. Now you can see the back leg. Can you go back to where she's split? Again, that back leg, that heel is planted. It needs to be up. That knee needs to now be turned in. That's like the one moment we can turn that.
You can almost see it's almost facing us.
And that's going to make her feel a lot more aggressive in that stance. She does do a good job. She kicks back with the front leg, then the back leg, which I really like.
Look at this look. I'm bad at the bone.
Yeah, she definitely did a good job hitting that lift. That's a heavy weight for her. So she brings it down with pretty good control. Keeps her back tight as she drops the bar. Excellent.
Tara's also a good example. I mean, we looked at her pull up earlier. I mean, when she came in for a discovery session, that was all brand new kipping and everything. And then I if I remember correctly, this was like the first time ever touching a barbell. She came in and she was like, I've never done anything like this. Mm-hmm. And she's been nothing but trying to learn every step of the way.
Yep. It's like she's a teacher that is good at learning things.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. All right, cool. So those are some videos that we got. If you guys want to send some in for the next one, we'll break them down. And we'll go from there. I like it.
That was about an hour.
That was a lot. Do you want to... I kind of want to talk about breathing, and I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into... so we talked about the technique things and the consistency, just how to, one, get stronger in Metcons, and then also like how to use the breathing to your advantage. Can we...
Yeah, let's shoot.
Okay, cool. So a couple things. This came out of Justin Tackney. I asked him what he would want to have us talk about, and one of the things was how do you judge how much weight to have on the bar? So like, let's say you're gonna scale it. Let's say it's 135.95 for some power cleans, and there's 10 reps every round of something, right? And your max is like 155. Cool. You're probably not gonna do 135. You shouldn't. How do you know which weight to use? And then how do you know to go heavier than that the next time you have power cleans? Because what if it's 15 power cleans or, some power cleans and push jerks? And it's easy to get caught up in, well, I'm just going to use 95 pounds, which would probably be a good weight for somebody with that max. But then I'm going to get caught always doing 95 pounds. How do I get out of that hole, and how do I make sure that it's safe? So something that I hadn't thought about it as a specific progression. For me, it's kind of like you do that weight until you're bored, and then you add some weight, which is a good philosophy to have, I think. You just get tired of using 95, so let's go to 105 or let's go to 100. But there's got to be something more specific or tangible with that, especially given that there's just 1,000 variations of what we do. So something that Alec mentioned during the no sweats is it's kind of what do you want to get out of the workout? Yeah, there's a specific intent or stimulus that we're chasing as a group, but sometimes like, okay, do you want to move more efficiently? Do you want to work on your power clean efficiency today? Do you want to work on your strength today? Maybe you cut some reps and you add some weight. How do you approach it? So what do you want to get out of the workout is the first thing I would ask. Let's say you're trying to get from 95 to being able to do 115 over the next couple months. Whenever there's power cleans are about 135.95, I want to get from 95 to 115. Let's go halfway. Cool. First, start with the technique, start with the efficiency. We want to be able to cycle that barbell and cycle it comfortably at 95 pounds. That's kind of like that get bored with 95 pounds thing. But we also need to make sure that the first step is that we're moving it the way we want to move it. If we start moving 95 pounds poorly, then when we go up in weight, we're going to use that heavier weight poorly, right? So start with the technique, make sure that is fluid and looks good. Ask the coaches, hey, can you watch this set, especially like when I get tired, and let me know what happens. Use us to your advantage for that and ask us those specific things, and we can give you that advice. And then from there, it's just creeping it up. Like one day it's you do 100 pounds. That might not seem like a big difference. You go grab the 2.5s, you throw them on either side, and you hit a power clean workout at 100 pounds. And like if it feels good, awesome. Don't go below 100 pounds, right? Now you've moved the needle and you get used to that. And then you go to 105, so on and so forth.
I think a big part of this too is you have to take in consideration that fitness isn't a single focus, that there's really not a lot of detriment to potentially using 95 for a little bit too long. Just because you used it for one workout too long doesn't set you up for failure. You just had probably a little bit, one, you probably put some good movement patterns in, but two, you had a little bit more cardiovascular focus workout. You move the barbell even faster.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the other part. I'll let you jump back on, but it's hard because, and that's something that, like I said earlier, increasing the notes to the coaches too will always benefit, is that the stimulus of the workout is so important that hitting the weight could be the wrong decision, the certain
Absolutely.
weight. And because maybe it's supposed to be something that's super cardiovascular and you choose 95 and it just tanks you. So I think that's a fair call.
Absolutely. And where was my train of thought? As a rule of thumb, it is always better to get done with a workout and think to yourself, I could have gone heavier. It is always better to get done with a workout and think, I could have gone faster. It is not always better to get done with the workout and be like, I went a little bit too heavy that day, or I went a little bit too fast out of the gate.
There's a cost to that for sure.
There's a huge cost. And if you're looking at the long term and you really want to drive the needle forward, it's always better just to be a little bit lighter, be a little bit more efficient, be a little bit smoother during your reps than it is on the other side of things where you just get buried. You hit a time cap because you couldn't snatch the weight that you put on the bar. And one thing that it's checking the ego and making sure that if you get halfway through and you realize that everyone is done with their power cleans and you're still on you're halfway through them, take some weight off the bar, cut some reps. A lot of people think about it as just moving the weight down. Sometimes you can just say it's 10 reps, cool, do 5, right? And you can do 5 well, but the wheels come off after that, then go heavy, but like cut some reps, just let the coach know.
I think that's an important thing that we've been trying to cover in the Discovery 101 also is, and mind you, it's only 4 interactions. So, and something hopefully videos improve also is with 100 members or 150 members or 180 members or whatever, it's impossible to micromanage all of them. And so one reason all this is happening with YouTube is that the education of what the whiteboard means to you is like the most important thing that we could, I mean, maybe not the most important thing, it's one of the most important things that we could do.
Yep.
Is so that everyone knows all the way from our oldest member to our newest member or our youngest member or whatever, they all know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. That also reminds me of if you're really chasing after certain specific like quantitative goals like getting your power clean during a Metcon heavier, you got to know where you're at for each workout and keep track of that. So the easiest thing is somebody asks me how many calories should I do if it's 30 calories and I'm not very good at calories, and if I ask them, well, how fast do you normally ride the bike, and they don't know, that's where we got to start. We got to look at the RPMs or the watts on the bike or the calories an hour on the rower. We got to pay attention to where you're at, and you have to do that. You have to pay attention to what your stroke rate is, what your speed is on average, and get used to that. You're going to settle around somewhere, and then we can start moving the needle forward from there. We got to pay attention a little bit. If you don't know normally what you do for your power clean workouts, like start paying attention to what feels right, and pay attention to if it feels too easy. I know a lot of the females in the gym will just throw on 55 to 65 pounds for a lot of workouts, but if you ask them, well, what'd you do last time? They have no idea what was on the bar. They just grabbed some 10s and 15s, count up the weight, figure what that is for you, and then start adding from there. And that's going to give you a lot better of an experience if you're a little bit more aware of what you're doing inside the gym. On that note, with the monostructural stuff, it is easy to get caught up in kind of being lackadaisical with that. Like, yes, it's always better to think I could have gone faster, but then the next workout, you need to go a little bit faster. Like you learned from it. Now you have to go and act upon that. And especially for calories, you have to be a little bit aggressive. Like you can't just be passive and just kind of lollygagging on the assault bike. It's you're just not going to get it done. And one thing and this is just a segue into the gears, is use the limits of your gears to base that increase in intensity off of it. So like, let's say,
real quick, let's jump back though and talk. What do you mean by gears? I mean,
okay.
I know what you mean, but...
Okay, so one thing we implemented early on post quarantine was geared breathing, and so we use we use different nasal breathing patterns and mouth breathing patterns to dictate intensity. One thing that we don't do a lot in CrossFit and we don't do at KAW Valley is heart rate monitoring, where you can, if your heart rate goes up, your intensity has now gone up. And so if we don't have our heart rate monitors, how do we manage intensity? So we use different patterns. The gears are as follows. Starting with gear 1, that's an equal nasal inhale with a nasal exhale. Okay, and it's pretty slow. That's the guy. Yeah. I've got it pulled up. If you, that's the one I got pulled up. That's it.
Put it on the screen.
Excellent. So gear 1 is about 12 breaths a minute if we're getting really specific, which is pretty slow. On average, you're probably going to breathe about 16 times to 18 times a minute. But ideally we want to be about 12 or maybe even lower to like 10. Anyhow, so gear 1 is what you would do for if you're hanging out, you're chilling, you're going for a really like easy walk. That's gear 1. It's your low aerobic state. Moving up from there.
I'm not sure this will be visible, but let's try.
We'll try. Gear 2 is essentially kind of your warm up weight or your warm up gear. You're still all nasal, but you're breathing in a little bit more intensely than you were in gear 1. Not a big difference, but it's still calm. It's still very, very efficient. And that's your high aerobic state. So think warm up, you're going for an easy jog. Things are still relatively calm. You're not trying that hard.
I have found this to be fantastic for all the zone 2 heart rate biking and running that I do.
Huge correlation with zone 2 for sure.
It's awesome. I mean, I know gear 2 and zone 2, all the things don't necessarily correlate directly to a zone per se, but it's awesome.
Yep. Gear 3 is where we get into some fun stuff. So gear 3 is essentially you're still all through the nose, but you can kind of go as hard as you want as long as you can keep your mouth shut. So this is where we start to get into a big shift towards more intensity. Here it's listed as a working bellows breath, and so it sounds like this. Super loud, kind of obnoxious. Snot goes places.
I'm sorry, I have no idea how that's going to sound.
I don't know either. I just wanted to see. But this is our anaerobic threshold. So we're looking at moving towards an unsustainable pace. Gear 3 should still be sustainable, I think. And this is also something I've realized by training these things is you can be in gear 4 and be forcing yourself into gear 3. So if you're in gear 3 and you're just miserable, you're probably in gear 4, or you probably should be in gear 4. You just are being stubborn. So gear 3 again is still nasal, but it's as hard as you can go, keeping your mouth shut. So then we get into some higher intensity things where gear 3 should be sustainable for a long time. That's where we can learn new movement patterns. We can kind of test out movement patterns. Gear 4, gear 5 is where we let the wheels come off a little bit. So gear 4 is very interesting. You probably don't do it ever unless you're trying, but it's in through the nose, out through the mouth. Right? And so we're in this anaerobic state. Our power output has gotten so far that we need to get that CO2 out of our system before it makes everything super acidic. But we're still controlling the breath. We're still driving that nasal inhale. And that's big as far as being in control of what your body is doing, right? So things can get really intense for gear 4. I think it's one of the nastier gears because you have to keep that control. And if you drive it up, again, just like you could do gear 4 within the constraints of gear 3, you can be in gear 4 and probably need to be in gear 5. And I've done ones where it feels like my nose is going to pinch itself off because I was inhaling so hard. But so that's gear 4. And that's where honestly most of CrossFit should be as far as training, should be somewhere in between gear 3 and gear 4. You gonna say something?
No.
Okay. Then moving up, gear 5, mouth breathing. Mouth in, mouth out. This is high anaerobic. It's not sustainable. We're going for it. And so one thing you'll learn as you dive into these gears is you really can judge. Like if you're forcing yourself to work your way up in gear, like let's say you're doing 50 calories for time on the bike and you start out in gear 3, you'll notice eventually you're at a pace that's not sustainable and you have to go to gear 4, and then you get to gear 5 and you're just working. Eventually it's going to run out. Like you're going to run out of steam. And so that's where those lower gears become important. We kind of see, are we going too fast? Are we going too slow? And so we can learn a lot about what's going on under the hood, if you will, with these gears. So gear 5 is something that you should probably only do once a week, if not every other week or so, or at least controlling it. So one of the workouts we're going to do Tuesday on the calories, we're going to keep it with gear 4. But when we go to the barbell movement, we can go to gear 5. And so the interesting thing with these gears is when you add a barbell into things or a high skill movement that involves a lot of respiratory mechanics, like toes to bar, for example, you're in this extreme spinal extension and then you got to close it into spinal flexion. That's a lot of stress on the diaphragm and the abs. And so it's really hard to do that nasal breathing for sure. So if we can do barbell movements in gear 3, we're going to own barbell movements in gear 5. So something to play with, and we are going to try to mix it up, but it's really hard to breathe through your nose with a barbell on your like your shoulders or up over your head.
I think if this is something that's strange to someone too, it's much like heart rate. It's hard to sometimes view it in the CrossFit lens. And so like if you always just view it like in a running lens, it makes way more sense. You know what I mean? It lets you at least start understanding the ideas, because it is different to have running is so cardiovascular in most points that it breathing in through your nose, out through your nose is a very conscious thing. But when you have
if you're doing burpees, for example, you're slamming your chest onto the ground.
Yeah, or 225 in a front rack or something. It's like, who
there's
knows?
some artifact.
No idea what that feels like.
One thing that I really like is, this is from the OPEX School of Thought, from James Fitzgerald, is you can kind of start to make things feel like the monostructural movement. So monostructural being like rowing, biking, running, swimming, where it's very consistent, it's cyclical, and there's a feeling. If you're rowing at 2 minutes per 500, that has a feeling. If you're rowing at 140 per 500, that has a feeling. And then especially if we're going back and forth between that and, let's say, a barbell movement, and we want to make it sustainable, well, I want that feeling to be the same. And so maybe I'm breathing in through my nose and out through my nose. I'm in gear 3 on the rower, but then I go and I've got some barbell cycling to do, and I'm going to open my mouth so I can keep my respiratory mechanics sound. Well, instead of just ramping it up to gear 5, even though my mouth is open, I'm going to keep the feeling the same and have that carryover. And that's one way we can kind of work through that artifact of the barbell crushing our chest.
I think one cool thing about this too is it's unlike, once again, heart rate, which I always compare these to. It's transferable on the fly to no matter what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Whether you're fight or flighting, or if you're playing basketball, or if you're running or biking or swimming outside of the gym, it instantly, you don't need anything to make it happen. It's just once you know it, you know it.
It's there. Going back to the programming thing. So if you're working on something and you really want to drive home the movement pattern. So let's say you're in that phase with the power cleans and you just want to make sure that you're moving very efficiently. Force yourself to slow down and keep it gear 3. There's a big piece of movement patterns from the nervous system. Obviously, it's a coordination thing. And if we're calm or calmer, we're more likely to remember and be able to practice things that are going to last for a long time. So even though it's going to slow you down, even though you're not going to get the score maybe that somebody else did, the long-term benefit of just forcing yourself to be in gear 3, you're going to have to think about how you're moving, because you're going to have to be efficient because you're regulating your oxygen intake and CO2 output. So if you're learning a movement or you want to get better at that efficiency, keep it in gear 3 for those things for a while, and that's going to play big dividends later on.
Well, and coming from a lifelong, committed mouth breather, like I'm the guy who sleeps on a plane, like just waiting for someone to prank me. I mean, being cognizant about it just in your daily life is big too. I mean, one, my dentist always told me it's bad for your teeth because you're drying out your gums and mouth or whatever, and causing problems. And we talked about that you're not filtering through your nose, so you're getting particulates in your lung. One reason, interesting thing that we talked about too, was that's why sometimes a lot of obese people have irritant problems with their lungs, because they're constantly mouth breathing, because they're constantly in like a zone 2 heart rate. But
yeah, well, and they have sleep apnea and some other things where they're So the cool part, and this is something that I really think is important, especially post-COVID, is that it also gears us a little bit more to pay attention to our bodies. So if we're constantly just letting the wheels come off, we're just coming in and slamming CrossFit workouts and just getting that release, we're not as cognizant of what's actually going on underneath the hood. Right. And so if we can get a little bit more in tune with that, and the breathing in any avenue is the doorway to what's going on with your internal physiology, what's going on in your like arterial blood gases. It's an intimate window, and we can start to apply that. We can take it outside of the gym as well. So something that we've been playing with is, if I'm gearing up to gear 5, which is a very intense fight or flight thing, what happens, how does my body feel when I go back down, right? So let's say I'm just gunning it on a bunch of power cleans. We're just cycling through. I'm in gear 5. And then I go for a run that's supposed to be a recovery run. well, cool. Now I can actually use these gears. I can downshift over that run. I start out in gear 5. I'm jogging a little bit. I get to the point where I can go to gear 4, nasal in, mouth out. Then I can get to gear 3 by the end of the run. And so when I come back in, I'm ready to slam that power clean again, right? And I know that my pace is accurate because I was able to down regulate a little bit. Well, the cool thing is as you're cooling down after your workout, you can use that downshift and that feeling. And we can take that outside of the gym. Obviously, the world is a little stressful right now, right? There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of things going on during 2020 that are hard to deal with. Well, so if you look at somebody that has panic attacks or anxiety, or they hyperventilate and they can't stop, if you've ever seen somebody hyperventilate, they're mouth breathing, right? And they're panicked. So they're in that fight or flight state. Well, if we can start to use what we've learned from the gears in the gym, we can now apply that. Well, I can take from mouth breathing. I can get back control. I can go nasal in, mouth out. Cool. Still fast, still a little panicky. But once I can get comfortable with that, now I can go to gear 3, right? I can close my mouth, and maybe I'm still breathing fast, but I'm okay. I have more control over what's going on. I've got a foot in the door, and I can start to take control over downshifting out of that panicked anxiety or hyperventilated state. So super neat application of what we can do to downshift. Or, for example, if you're just angry in traffic, right, and you kind of lose it and you get heated, if you pay attention to it, you're probably mouth breathing. You're probably a little angsty, maybe not very fast.
Not paying attention to it at that time.
But probably not paying attention to it. But if you needed to calm down, cool. Usually it's like take a deep breath in. And we take a deep breath in, but that fast inhale kind of drives us up. Well, what if it was like, all right, I'm in gear 5 right now for no reason because somebody cut me off. I need to down regulate, right? I need to calm down because this is silly. And so then you can start to use that gear 4 back to gear 3 and kind of bring your state back. And that gives you just a lot more control over your psyche, which is important. So can of worms.
Off the soapbox.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's segue to something kind of similar. I mean, we can talk about this more in general too, but I want you to give a general synopsis. Allow someone to still read the book, but give some of the big takeaways from. You read a book called Rest by Alex. Alex.
I believe it's South Korean.
Sujung Kim Pang.
That was pretty good. I think that was right.
I'm from Louisiana. We can't be expected to know very much, but I think especially in these times, I don't know if we'll have time today, but we're going to talk a lot of things about running a gym during COVID and fitness during things like this, and what we've seen in membership base, the dichotomy of how it's affected people's lives, but in general, everyone can benefit from. And one thing that I've found, I've gone from working 60, 70 hours a week to a self-led lifestyle, owning a gym. It's been a similar thing that even on small levels you can win by having those. Like I tell everyone in my life, the whole every woman who's ever loved me understands that I need 2 hours a day where no one's going to talk to me. And I think it's a huge part of who I am. And so talk to me a little bit about Rest and
Let's do
we'll
it.
Start there.
Okay, cool. So great book. I read it on vacation. Super fitting. If you have the chance to read it, the way it's set up is it starts with short-term stuff. So day-to-day things like when should you take a nap? How long should your nap be? When do you take breaks from work or studying? What's the most efficient way to take a step back? And then it goes out in time a little bit longer to things like vacation or weekends. What should you do on the weekend? Like, should you work on the weekend? No. Here we are on Sunday working. It's fine. But and then it goes out to vacations. So like how long should your vacation be? And then it even dials back into like a sabbatical. Like should you take a semester off from doing things? What are the benefits of that? So the thing that, and this goes into the gearing very, very well, is that as humans, especially in this day and age, we're always driven to the max. We're always on. We pump ourselves full of caffeine. We wake up at the crack of dawn, and like today's day and age, it's all about the grind. It's all about the hustle. It's all about like, can you work 80 hours a week? Can you work 100 hours a week?
I think it's a problem that they made it seem like that was the the big dog thing to do. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's people, you know, my absolute love for, what's his name? Paul Harvey. No, that's not his name. Paul Harvey's an awesome guy. Who's the guy that does his big mustache?
Big mustache. What are you talking about?
Oh my God. He does the, what is it called? I can't think of his name.
I don't know. Okay.
He
Do you need to Google it?
He does the show where you guess
big mustache.
You guess the word and you get the points for it.
Oh,
Steve Harvey. Paul
There
Harvey is the rest of the story.
Okay, what about Steve Harvey?
That makes me seem super old. I think my grandpa used to love Paul Harvey, but Steve Harvey sucks. But the hot take, Steve Harvey sucks. But he came out with a thing that was like, do you think the people that are outworking you, like, do you think they're sleeping more than 5 hours a day? Like, you need to sleep 5 hours a day. You need to be up at whatever, 4 a.m. because people on the freaking coast are already up 2 hours before you working. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
it's a disaster.
That is so far from what, I mean, I'm not saying there aren't people that do that are successful, but like we talked about before, there's a cost to that is immense. And it's crazy.
The problem that also I see is that there's people that do that and they are successful on the outside looking in, but they're the outliers, right? They're the exceptions to it. And this is one of the things that they get into this book is that the people that are like the overwhelming majority are people that do sleep 8 to 9 hours. They do take vacation. They do stop working at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, go do something else. He tells these really cool stories of World War II where who was it? One of the American generals. It's escaping me right now, but he rented a cottage during World War II. Okay, so like the most important things are going on right now, and he rents a cottage to escape the war room, and he would go play golf all day long.
Wow.
Yeah. And like now he doesn't play it as much as some of the politicians that are in today's offices, but it was important for him to escape the stress of the war and the bombings going on around him, that he would go and play golf and take naps, and then he could come back refreshed. You see that with Churchill. Churchill had he had a very strict nap time that he had to take, and there was a point where like they were literally getting firebombed. And it's super stressful. Everyone's running around like their heads are cut off. And he's like, well, it's time for my afternoon nap. And so he went and took a nap, and then he started fresh back. And there was a huge testament to we need these ebbs and flows throughout our days and throughout our lives to optimize how we human. It's not natural for us to just stick to the grind and wake up and only have 4 or 5 hours of sleep. It's not sustainable to how our physiology is meant to operate, right? We're in this this state that's not natural, and that's why like the uppers, and then then you have anxiety, and so you take.
That's like
downers.
If you ever been camping, it's like that. We literally go try to live outside for 4 days because it's just like this weird lifestyle where like your only concerns that day are getting up, trying to clean yourself, and go to the bathroom, and then sitting by the fire making some food, and maybe go for a hike.
Maybe go for a hike, right?
Compared to your normal day, that used to just be people. I mean, obviously they had more stresses in life than that too, but. We've come a long way.
Yeah. And so something that was big for me to take out of this, especially applying it to fitness, is like if you can find those moments where you kind of take a step back. So like with the gears, like doing a gear 3 workout, it's important to move in a less intense state. There's a lot of benefits as far as your cardiovascular system and the movement's efficiency. But it's also just good to kind of turn the lights down a little bit and calm things down. We need those moments of high intensity for sure. But if our whole life is you wake up, you go slam CrossFit at 5 a.m. Maybe you take a post-workout drink after your pre-workout that morning, and then you go drink coffee at work, and you grind through the day, and then you come home, you get like a second workout in, let's say, or you got some like chores to do, and then all of a sudden like you're just zoned out watching some action adventure thing on Netflix, and your brain is constantly stimulated. It has to take a step back eventually, and it eventually will take it for you, which is kind of the scary part.
Well, your body too, right? I mean, I think a lot of people that get new into fitness, especially right now with the world, that you can't not sleep one night and not eat well for a day and then come in here and worry about RXing the workout.
Absolutely.
That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And we won't segue into this today, but one day we're going to talk about how your inputs affect your outputs. You don't just have free outputs. The body doesn't work that way. It doesn't offer you physiological miracles all the time.
It also, I mean, as far as the fitness thing goes, it sets you up for injury, right? So if you're not slept well, you've had a terrible diet. Trust me, I'm very well versed in all this, working on the ambulance. It's going to take a toll on your joints as well. And so even though maybe you didn't work out the day before, but like you didn't sleep and you worked all day, you're going to be at risk for injury a lot more than if you had slept and you'd had good food and all those things. The other big thing is taking breaks from the intensity of things and finding things like reading a book or meditating and doing something like yoga, where maybe you're not working out. You're Paul Chek likes to say you're working in, and you can kind of escape the world. That's important. Something we're constantly inundated with stimulus from social media, from the job, like expectations of the world, keeping up with the news, so on and so forth, that we miss out on these moments where we can maybe not be mindful, but literally be mindless, and not watching TV mindless because we're still pumping ourselves full of like blue light and intensity, but letting our brain just kind of zone out for a little bit. Like think when you're driving and you drive and it's fine, but you don't remember how you got somewhere.
That's always weird.
It is super weird, right? If when you have that, your brain is now in this like processing a thing. I can't remember what they call it in the book, but there's really important things that happen that also happen when you sleep, where your brain is just processing and basically being its own therapist. And right now, the general populace like does not get any of that time, where we have our phones out, we're listening to music really loud, but we're still on, we're still present and in that fight or flight state. And it takes its toll on your mental health for sure. So having those moments, those ebbs and flows where, you just go sit in a hammock and read a book or take a nap or count some breaths, work on your breath work. Those are super important for so many reasons, but especially our mental status in the old 2020s.
I think that ties in to a good next topic also, which we're going to talk about it from a business standpoint when we talk about culture in a CrossFit gym in our experience in 2 years. But also, it leads into good about one good thing that Coach Chad started here, I think just randomly one day that we picked up was question of the day before each class. And which sometimes can be what's your favorite candy bar, which is more of a silly one. But people start realizing that they aren't stopping to read books. So we'll have a question about what is your favorite book or what is one book you would recommend? And they'll be like, well, I haven't read a book in 10 years. And you're like, that, or how is that possible? Or even, and not quite disconnecting, but what's your favorite podcast, or what's your favorite song? And people start realizing that their whole life just becomes running their kids around or going to work. And I think doing things like the question of the day, one, helps people realize that, but also on the flip side, it's been a really cool thing, business or culture wise in the gym also.
For sure. Yeah, no, super grateful for that. It's also funny because it's like,
good job, Chad.
Yeah, A+ to that. It's also a challenge now for the coaches to come up with a good question of the day. Some of them fall pretty flat, but we've had some awesome winners, and it's cool to get to know everyone on like just a maybe random but a deeper level, and they get to share that with other people. One of the things that we don't get much right now with all the social distancing is that like that long conversation, the contact with people, the being in proximity to somebody else that's important for like the human psyche, and we just don't have that. And like the question of the day has been super, super, super helpful to at least start to bridge that gap, sharing with each other and whatnot. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be honest, we have to do Murph tomorrow, so we should wrap things up.
That's what I was thinking. You gotta be up in the morning too.
I'm sleepy. I need my baby beauty rest.
I think that's a pretty. We made it through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 potential topics.
Yeah, that's pretty good, especially with the technique stuff. That
that was
next
cool.
time we should do
we'll do 5 videos a day or 3 videos a time.
I like 3. I think 3, and we can kind of pick and choose.
Well, and I'm gonna probably break those up over 3 or 4 actual clips. We'll do 2 or 3 a video, cool. And if so, then it's all we'll really record. Cool. All right, to finish that up, nothing better than the hype man himself.
Let's go.
Here, I'll put it on the screen so you can see it too. Oh.
Hello, back end of the.
I'm not gonna do that. Oh God, hope that didn't mess everything up.
It might have. I don't know.
What led to this YouTube journey started off with whiteboard reviews over when we were shut down by quarantine, and that led to Coach Joe being the whipping boy of what was he doing? He was
all the demo videos,
all the
movements.
I mean, whether he had ever done it or not, it didn't matter.
We had to do it.
Here I was with my camera being like, guess what you're doing today? And sometimes he crushed it. Sometimes he showed up in a pair of shorts that was so ripped it was more like a loincloth. But we made
rules, man. 2020.
I made a hilarious cut one day of him just to promote running a 200, I think, at the gym. But it's just how we're gonna end every day. It's gonna be well, I'll let it speak for itself. Cheers, bud. This is the last one. Oh God, here it comes. Oh, look at him go. Film work by Joe or by Clay.
I also did the special effects.